before, just pretend like you haven't. So,
this is your home as much as any other. I love you, Lucy.
I love you too, Mom.
Thank you so much for answering the call.
Oh my gosh, of course, yeah.
I'd like you to meet Lucy.
Hi. Lucy, I'm Anne. This is your home too, you know. Yeah, do you maybe want to come in and check it out? Yeah. So, do you like hot chocolate? Tell me, what's going on with this drawing?
I don't like it with the crust.
Oh. Okay. Easy fix. Next time you don't have to worry about it. It's good for me to know. Can you please open the door? I'd like to come in and talk to you. I know that you're upset.
I like it here.
I'm so glad.
That's good. That one? Can you write one down, maybe?
Yeah, got it.
You can put one here.
Yeah, he's very proud of me. What do you think? Good?
Oh, give me for a second.
Hey, what you working on?
I can't tell you.
Well, what is it?
This is you. This is me. This is a
Really
little
good.
sunflower.
Do you think you could maybe sign it for me?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Hello?
Hey, Anne, this is Rachel at ABCH. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks. Is this about Lucy? Is she okay?
No, ma'am. Lucy's back with her parents, and I'm happy to say they're doing really well.
Oh, okay. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I actually have a question about a little boy. His name is Chris.
Another placement?
Yes, ma'am. That's my question. Anne, are you still there?
I would love that.
Hi, Anne. Thank you so much for answering the call.
Hi, Chris. I'm Ann. Hi. This house is just as much yours as any other, okay? Maybe you want to come in and check it out?
sorry, I still get emotional at times. Just watching that, I'll share more about why that video is important to me here after a bit. But I share that with you because there's one of these cards that has these resources for you as pastors. And the videos like that, our marketing team works really hard if you're interested in promoting foster care, orphan care, any sort of ministry to orphans at your churches. We have resources just like that you can show. And I know that our marketing team actually won a significant award for that video that they made. But anyways, the children's home, what I've found out in the last 6 months that I've been working, I have to do a job. Part of my job is explaining who we are and what we do. Although we are approaching 140 years old, there are still people who think that the Alabama Baptist Children's Home is an orphanage, maybe in Evergreen, maybe in Troy, maybe it's in Decatur, maybe it's in Oxford, but it's an orphanage that has a bunch of children. And although that was the case at one time, it hasn't been that way since 1972-ish or so. What kind of the big takeaway that we need to get out in the community is that ABCH is the largest faith-based foster care placement agency in the state. So every year there are 6,000 children in the Alabama state DHR foster care system. And I personally do not believe that it's the government's role to take care of these children, whether it's temporary or permanency. I think it's the church's role. I think that you in here would all agree. And it was funny because I was at a conference a couple weeks ago in Nashville, and the conference was really about church engagement. And we kind of had this epiphany because we're here talking with pastors and believers, like we're preaching to the choir every week. Everyone's on our team. Like every time I have a meeting with somebody, no one raises their hand and say, "Hey, Jeff, like we're not interested in taking care of orphans. Like our church, we'll be about this and we'll be about this, but we have no interest in caring for the fatherless." That doesn't happen. And so there's no need for me or anybody else to get in front of a group of pastors or churches and try to convince you with James 1:27 or any of the attributes of God being a father to the fatherless. You already want to do that, and most of you are already being a part of that. The disconnect is we haven't done a great job of telling our story and showing you how we can help you kind of achieve that call into ministry to take care of orphans. So that's my job, is to engage you in that role and help connect with you on how you can partner with ABCH to raise foster families, to care for foster families, and then to take care of a large chunk of these kids that the state right now are doing their best to take care of. So that's what this is for. This piece right here gives you all the information about the children's homes. It does go on to talk about our family care ministries, which family care, we have 3 homes in the state. This is where we take in homeless or nearly homeless mothers that have children. It's a preventative care model. So we'll take these women who have children who are down on their luck, and they move into our homes, 3 of these homes, 7 women in each home. If you haven't seen the home in Alabaster or the home in Gardendale or the home in Mobile, it's incredible. They're almost like a duplex. These women and their children have their own, essentially, apartments. And so it's a year-long program, and the women have a forced savings account. They have an ongoing discipleship relationship, and they have all of these stipulations that once they get out of this program, they've got $20,000, $30,000 in the bank. They can make a down payment on a house. And one of our family care specialists, in a conversation with me and one other person, this other person said, it's like these women are getting a second chance in life. And the family care specialist, who grew up in foster care herself in our Mobile home, said, this isn't their second chance. This is their first chance. And she was like, at times I was one flat tire away from being homeless again, like missing a job interview or not showing up from work. Like every one of us in here, if I got a flat tire on the way, I could call Chris Crane and say, hey man, my tire's flat, and within 30 minutes he'd have somebody to me if it wasn't him himself. So there's all of these other extenuating circumstances that we want to take out of the picture and let these women develop some good habits and some structure so that when they get out of this program, they are self-sufficient and off to a good start. And number one, the state never takes their children away. That's our family care. You'll see that there. Foster care is our bread and butter. We have about 500 children every year that we care for, and that's kind of self-explanatory. It's different. A lot of people see us as competitors with Lifeline. The difference is that we do different things. So Lifeline trains parents. We also train parents. But once our parents are trained, they're given a social worker that will walk with them the day that they take their first placement until the day that they say, the Lord's not calling me to foster care anymore. So they walk. They're kind of like a buffer between them and the state that helps kind of meet every single need that they have. So that's a little bit of that difference. And then I'll share about college care in a story here in a minute. But I do want to share this Vision 140. This is our board and our leadership has cast this vision here for the future of the children's home. It's kind of our direction moving forward. If you don't have a goal or ambitions, like what do you have? Like where are we going? So this is where we're going. This is what we want to do. So you can see it's called Vision 140 because in 2031, the Alabama Baptist Children's Homes and Family Ministries will be 140 years old. Right now we have 500 children in care. The goal is to have 1,000 children in care on an annual basis by 2031. And we think that by doing that, it will alleviate the burden that is experienced. You know, you see the Alabama Baptist or you even see AL.com reporting on the foster care crisis. Well, what that means is there's 6,000 kids. There's only a limited amount of social workers. So these social workers who are at the state level may have 50 to 60 kids on their plate. And so the quality of care drastically reduces. You can ask anybody, if you've got anybody in your churches who are fostering through DHR, ask them how difficult it's been. They may have 4 or 5 caseworkers. So I do want you to kind of walk through this with me. And I do have an extra copy. These are for you to take if you want, and you can kind of look at them at your own convenience. I'll walk through it real quick. We wanted a concise document to tell our story and lay out where we're going. And this is the best piece of doing that. So you can see the problem, right? Kind of looking at the scientific method, if you will. The problem is there's 6,000 kids in care. The state is overwhelmed. The government is not responsible for these kids. The church is responsible for them. So if there's a problem and the church is given a command, perhaps, to address it, kind of what do we do, right? And so we think that we do have a solution. If we can get 1,000 of these kids in our care, it alleviates that burden, and also takes 1,000 kids of the 6,000 and puts them in gospel-centered homes with Christian families. Like that's the ministry, that's the heartbeat of ABCH. Is we want these kids to hear the gospel. It is an evangelical ministry. Like the goal is to take these children who may have never heard the gospel, and we may have them for 2 days, we may have them for 2 years. About 10% of our families end up adopting out of the state. We may have them forever. But we want them to hear the gospel and have an opportunity to respond while they're in our care. So if we can get 1,000 of them in our care, we think that is the solution to alleviating this issue. Now, here's the difference. This is why we have a $14 million budget. Quality of care is very expensive the way that we do it. It's very expensive, and it's expensive because we do it at a level that nobody else does, and we do it intentionally that way so that we can retain foster families and so that they can keep kids for longer, right? We don't want turnover within. If the Lord's calling someone into foster, we don't want them to have a miserable experience. We would like for them to continue as long as possible. So Number one, we want them in gospel-centered homes. Number two, which this is probably underappreciated. Every single child in our care has experienced some level of trauma. As minor as you may think or as severe as you may think. Abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, death of siblings. In Tuscaloosa, my wife directs another nonprofit that supports foster families. And one of our DHR families that's fostering in Tuscaloosa got 2 children placed with them, 2 infants, because they were triplets, and the boyfriend beat one of the children to death. Imagine the trauma for those kids. Like, it's unimaginable. And so we provide counselors for every one of our kids, all of their families, and then also what we haven't done a good job of sharing is we provide counselors for everyone in this room at no cost to any SBC pastor, minister on staff. Okay, so that oftentimes I'm going into places and they're thinking that I'm trying to like take something or ask for money. This is what we want to offer to you and your people is Pathways Counseling. Here, Steve Trader comes here once a week. That's a resource that you have access to, your people have access to. All of our foster families, all of our foster children have access to. Camp of Champions, has anybody been to Camp of Champions before? Chris, you've been? This is unique. This is quite possibly the best representation of anything that we do. We take every one of our children, probably 350 plus this year, in June it was, 300 families, every one of our staff members to Chaco Springs, and we put on a summer camp for the children, foster and biological, and all of the parents kind of get a break for a weekend. They don't have to worry about what to cook. They don't have to worry about getting their kids dressed. They don't have to worry about anything except dropping their kids off with us, who have to turn into camp counselors for a weekend. And then the parents also get their continued education credits that they have to retain their foster care license. So it's an awesome, awesome experience. And if you've never been, this is an open invitation. If you want to drive out one day and be a part of that, serve some hamburgers to some of the families, whatever you want to do, I'll set that up and make it happen. It's a great representation of what ABCH does at Chaco. And that's one way you can pray for us. We've outgrown that place, and there's no other place to go. So we need the Lord to work a miracle and figure out, if we get 1,000 kids in care, how in the world are we, going to make that happen at Chaco? So maybe we need, University of Alabama, University of Mobile, somebody to open up some space for us to make that happen. So supplemental board payments, a lot of you don't know this. The state gives every foster family roughly $500 per child per month. ABCH supplements almost $300 per month on top of that per child, I think. Still $800 a month for a kid. That's not a lot. I have three kids right now. I know that is not a lot of money. But we try to go above and beyond so that we can provide the most normality, I think is a good word to use for our children and our families. Closing gifts, that's just trying to go above and beyond and make sure that. Here's what happened. Wes Talley. Wes is one of our foster parents. He's on our board. I had breakfast with him early on when I started, and I said, can you tell me about your experience as a foster parent with ABCH? And he gave me this perfect analogy that I texted him the other day. I said, hey, man, I've shared this analogy that you've given me probably 100 times in 6 months. This will be 101. He said, fostering with ABCH is like this. He said, foster care is walking down a dirt road in the wilderness in the middle of a thunderstorm carrying 2 children barefoot. He said, that's what foster care is like. He said, fostering with ABCH, he said, you're still walking down the dirt road. You're still in the wilderness. You're still in a thunderstorm. He said, but you get a new pair of Hoka hiking boots, You get a social worker that's beside you carrying those two babies, holding an umbrella, making sure you don't trip and fall, giving you a bottle of water. And I thought, man, that's powerful. Like, we don't think about these small instances of what our quality of care can do for our families. And I thought that's pretty cool, Wes. Thanks for sharing that with me. So, and lastly, a community. This is where our churches kind of step in. We want our churches to start foster care ministries and adoption ministries and orphan care ministries in their church, so that they can surround the families that are in their church that are adoptive parents, are foster parents, and also help them with additional resources they may need. Parents' night out. Maybe they want to go on a date night. Maybe you can provide some gift cards. Maybe you can let them drop the kids off at your house for a couple hours so they can go eat in peace. There's a million different ways that churches can surround these families, and we have resources to help develop these ministries within your churches to kind of help those families. So I'm going to skip over the stories because I've got some personal stories I'm going to share with you. Recruiting foster parents is the number one obstacle. The best people to help us do that are you. Nothing makes as much a difference in that call to foster parents than a leadership standing up in the pulpit and saying this is important. They may be thinking about it. They may be, kind of teetering it. But we don't need AL.com to convince parents to become foster parents. We need their pastor to say, hey, God might be moving in your heart to do this. I think you should do it. And we're going to walk beside you and help you. So recruiting foster parents is always number one. That is my job, to go into churches and say, hey, here is what we do. Number one, we have to have foster parents. And it's easy, like 6,000 kids. Right now, there's 2,300 foster parents in the state. Do the math, it doesn't add up. We got to have some more foster parents. Number two, you saw that the quality of care that we provide, it's expensive. And you can kind of see that list in that book, or you can look on the screen and see what all goes into those expenses. We don't want to hide anything from anybody when I say that it costs $185,000 on an annual reoccurring basis to hire one social worker that can care for about 30 kids every year. And this is why. Because of all these things listed on the screen. Every one of our social workers has to have a vehicle that they can throw car seats in and take kids to court and go pick the kids up from DHR and take them and meet with a family. They've got to have a computer so they can do their notes for the state. They've got to have all of these. They need an office to work out of. We need to be able to take care of our kids with clothing and food and braces, whatever it may need to make it as normal as possible. And that's where the opportunity is for churches to partner with us, right? We need families and we need funding. There's no way we can get to Vision 140 to get 1,000 kids in our care without having our church partners do what they do. And we're so grateful for Southern Baptist and the cooperative program. There's a bit of a misconception is that our funding comes from the cooperative program, and that we do get some funding from the cooperative program. We get about $400,000 a year out of a $14 million budget. So if that was all the money that we got, we could last less than a month, and we'd have to fire everybody and close the doors. So that's one way that I think it opens up some eyes to some SBC churches to say, hey, we do get money from the cooperative program, but that money that you're sending to the state every month or every year, we get half a penny off of every dollar. So they do that because that allows us to go into churches and say, hey, can you put us in your missions budget? And so that's a trade-off that we like to have. So, but I just need to clear up misconceptions along the way in that regard. So take that piece with you if you want to sit through it and look through it and consider how your church may be interested in partnering with us. I'll tell you why I came to ABCH. I had a comfortable job. I say comfortable. I was working at a nonprofit. Wasn't making a lot of money. I was happy and content. I'll say that. But many years ago, 2007, I was a freshman at the University of Alabama. And I got involved in a ministry called Kids Club and Full Court. I went to Calvary Baptist Church, right beside the football stadium. If you've been to an Alabama football game, you know exactly where the church is. And we would go into government housing projects every single week, and we would play basketball, do arts and crafts, and do a devotion with children from, 6 until 18. And after about a year of doing this as a freshman, I was asked to lead that ministry for the last 3 years of my college career. And so every week I would go on a Tuesday, do a devotion, go play basketball, hang out with these children, teenagers mainly. And I would say after the devotion, and here I am, like backwoods redneck from North Alabama in the middle of nowhere. All of these children are, most of them don't have any father figure in their home, and they're living kind of a different, they're just different than me. And I thought, maybe I have something to offer. And I'm thinking, maybe somebody needs a pair of shoes. Maybe somebody needs a backpack. Maybe somebody needs a Big Mac. And so I'm asking these kids after I do a Bible devotion, what can I do to help you? If there's anything I can do, come see me afterwards. I do this every week for 3 years. And one kid comes up to me at the end of my junior year, says, hey, Jeff, you know how you've been saying this every week? I want you to teach me how to drive. And I thought, what the heck? That's not what I was expecting. But I thought about it for a second. I said, all right, it's Tuesday. Meet me here the next day. It's being Wednesday. We'll start driving lessons. You come to church with me that night. And so what started as driving lessons turned out to be a relationship that radically changed my life. Wesley was probably 16 when I met him. He was in a gang called the West Side Mafia. He had spent a couple stints in jail. He had been shot twice, once at 8 years old, once at 16 years old. And so also keep in mind, you don't find out this information on like the first date. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't just hop in the car that next day and I get this wealth of knowledge about his life story. It comes over a 2-year friendship of getting to know each other and building trust and equity. And here's what I want you to know. Wesley was born in Detroit, Michigan, to a mother who was HIV positive. Dad's name wasn't even on the birth certificate. Not around. Wesley's mom died shortly after he was born due to complications, and that landed him in the state's control. Okay, so he gets put in the foster care system in Michigan and spends 8 years there, shopped around from home to home until somehow, and this is how overwhelmed the state systems are. It took them 8 years to identify a relative that they could place him with. All right. So he gets sent to Tuscaloosa to live with a paternal grandmother. Somehow they found his dad, and he gets put with his paternal grandmother from Detroit to Tuscaloosa. Now, keep in mind, Wesley has told me that his experience in foster care was miserable, like abusive, neglectful. He was like they'd slam my hand in the car door, like intentionally. And so he spends 8 years in the foster care system, gets moved to guardianship of his grandmother. Well, she worked at Stillman College and lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. In her apartment was grandmother in 1 bedroom, uncle, aunt, their boyfriends or girlfriends coming in and out, and a couple kids in a 2-bedroom apartment. So Wesley slept on a sofa for his whole life until he met me, and at one of our worship nights at our service, we raised enough money to go buy him a sleeper sofa, which was kind of ironic because I spent 11 years delivering beds to people who didn't have beds to sleep in. Nonetheless, I find all this stuff about Wesley. He moves here to Tuscaloosa. His only role models are his uncles who were dealing drugs. He told me the first time he ever smoked weed was he was probably about 11 years old. you have to imagine, I am, you may not be able to tell now. I've got this nice Masters like quarter zip pullover on. I was a backwoods like hillbilly, and Wesley's this inner city like troubled youth, and this idea of us having this weird friendship was only by the sovereignty of God. Okay, so it was so strange. Wesley would come to football games. He'd come to my flag football games. He would come and play video games in our apartment. And I remember this says a little bit about Wesley's upbringing. My friend was taking him to the SEC baseball tournament here in Hoover from Tuscaloosa. He's driving on the interstate, my friend Kyle. Kyle turns cruise control on, and it blows Wesley's mind. He's like, your foot is not on the gas. How in the world is this possible? And I'm like, what in the world? But also, Kyle took him to the doctor one day. Wesley started looking a little sickly, and so Kyle, my friend, and I would take turns taking him to his doctor's appointments because his caseworker was overwhelmed, didn't have time. So Kyle, at one of his doctor's appointments, overheard that Wesley was HIV positive as well. And fast forward, well, that night, I remember sitting Wesley down and saying, hey, man, like, I don't know what this means, but I think it means that likely I'm going to outlive you. And here's what I want you to know about the gospel. And I shared with him numerous times, but he just kept saying, I know. And about 6 months after that, we're in my apartment, and Wesley says, Jeff, I wish you could have adopted me when I was young. And my first thought when he said that was, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I would have been 3 years old. That's not possible. But now that I'm 35 years old, I think I can play a part in this. And so about, 3 months after that conversation, I get a call from Wesley's uncle. Wesley had died in his sleep. He suffered from renal failure. And that shook me. I remember that night, like, laying in bed and just weeping and just confused. But I remember thinking, like, Lord, you have arranged this strange friendship out of nowhere. I trust that you have a plan, and I'm going to give my life to make sure that children like Wesley do not end up like he did. And so, when I started having conversations with ABCH, I thought, man, Wesley was one kid, and now I get to play a part in whatever role that may be in 6,000. Like, that's a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't I do that? And I share that story because I loved Wesley, and it's important to me because I think, like, what if he had been placed in like a family in your church's home in foster care? Like what if he was placed in a family at Brook Hills, or what if he was placed in a family in First Baptist Trustful or 6th Avenue Baptist? Like it could have made the whole, like he could have got the care he needed, like he could have, like we could have seen fruit, like maybe he could have come to know the Lord. I don't know that he didn't. He might have. I can tell you this, like Wesley was way different the day that he died from the day that I met him. But I also like to juxtapose that story with two others, and I'll end with these. Some of you, if you've heard these, some other people may have shared them with you, but they're important to me because you see the kind of the difference. Hannah, in early high school, her teacher noticed some dysfunction in the home, and long story short, reached out to ABCH. We got in touch with DHR, and her Hannah's teacher previously was a foster parent with us, and so she kind of had, if you're a foster parent and you're involved with us, you kind of have eyes out and know kind of what to look for. And come to find out, there was in fact some dysfunction at home, and we worked it out, and Hannah's teacher became her foster parent. Hannah recently, probably a year and a half ago, I know this because there's a letter on our refrigerator in our Birmingham office from Hannah. Hannah graduated from the University of Alabama with 2 degrees and is working at Redstone Arsenal making who knows how much money in Huntsville, and is set up for like an unbelievable amount of success because a family said, I want to open up my kitchen table and let that be my mission field. Like, it's a big deal. Like, God calls some people to Ecuador, and he calls some people to Crestwood to open up your beds or your living rooms, your backyards. And so, and then at Christ Fellowship Church, last week in August, Chance, 12 years old, I watched this YouTube video a couple times of their live stream of their service because it's powerful. Chance is one of our kids, and he got placed in a home, a lady named Heather. Chance walks up to start off this service. He stands in front of the church and says, I'm Chance, I'm 12 years old, I've been in several homes, I didn't have a normal home life until I got involved with ABCH and got placed in Heather's home and got involved here at CFC, and I got to go to youth camp, and I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior, and today I'm making a public profession of faith, and I'm going to be baptized. And I thought, that's powerful. Like, here is his Wesley story, who didn't have the support that he needed, and here's Chance, who, ironically enough, was given a chance by a loving Christian family. And so that's what we're about. That's what ABCH is about. I would love to talk with you more. It's easier to get everybody in one room, and that keeps me from having to schedule a bunch of lunches. But I'm more than happy to take any one of you to lunch and tell you about ABCH and how you can partner with us. So